Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hi, I'm DJ Ross and I'm addicted to caffeine pills.
Oh no.
Well, I thought we were doing a very special episode.
Oh, I thought this was, we were doing your intervention finally.
Oh, no. No, I shouldn't joke about that. I thought we were, we need a serious show one of these days.
Yep, just gonna go super sad.
Oh, well, that doesn't sound fun.
Yep.
You listen to any sad podcasts? Just like, I gotta get to work and I want to be sad when I get there.
All of my politics podcasts, those are the sad ones.
Oh, yeah, I'd stay far away from that.
Yeah, slightly better recently, yeah.
But, a little bit.
But we had a long bleak period in there, yeah. Anyways, moving on. On every episode of Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, the summer backlog attack continues with Marathon, Sable, and Dragon Slayer 4.
I wasn't planning to talk about Marathon, but we could squeeze some Marathon in there.
Okay.
We
usually stream a game and then we talk about it briefly, so...
True. Yeah, go. Oh, Marathon. There are aliens in it. Yeah, that was my reaction when I saw those aliens.
Me too, because like the very first scene, you walk around a corner and he's doing his little tippy-toe shuffle.
They're right there. Yeah, they're so weird.
Yeah.
Well, we can get into it.
So what is Marathon?
Are we just going to go immediately into it? Should we talk about some Marathon? All right.
I mean, we teased it. Yeah. Did you have any interesting Taco Bell lately? Did anything funny happen in Final Fantasy this week?
I started like the hardcore raids this week, but
wow.
Definitely wasn't planning to talk about that.
Okay, we'll save it.
I like to let a few weeks go by so the drama builds up.
I have here a bingo card of all of our usual topics. I'm trying.
Oh, you do? Okay. Well, let me see. Hold on.
Yep.
Haven't played the Slay the Spire for 3 or 4 weeks now. Is that on there?
Oh, yep. That should be on there. Yeah, absolutely. At this point, although we have infected members of our community, we have a few folks in the Discord now who have caught the bug. So, Slay the Spire continues its path towards global domination.
Yep. Okay, so let's see. They haven't announced the next Battlefield game yet. There's been a lot of stuff coming out of the Monster Hunter team, though. So those two have got to be on there.
Sure. Yeah, I think we're going back a little bit, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I feel like this next Monster Hunter, I may just not play it.
What?
Weird thought I had.
Holy cow.
I don't know. Just thoughts going through my head. There's just so much going on.
Are you still like enjoying the previous one, or you just kind of think maybe it's time for a break?
I feel like maybe Monster Hunter has run its course for me. Like I really enjoyed the Monster Hunter Rise on the Switch, but then the DLC for it came out, and I just did not play it at all. I played it a little bit, so not completely neglected, but I played maybe like 1% as much of it as I did any of the previous Monster Hunter games.
Wow.
So I don't know what happened. But anyway, we can talk about Monster Hunter another time.
Yeah, when it comes out, we'll have a conversation about why you're not playing it.
Yeah. Well, I think we had that conversation when the last DLC came out, but we can revisit. Yeah. The thing about that bothers me about Capcom is that they start hyping stuff up so early. Like the game is not even out until next year. And yet, here I am already complaining about it. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
That's a pretty long runway. I like to keep that timeline a little shorter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nintendo gets it right. Theirs is always sort of like, here's some games coming out in the next 3 months. And I'm like, that's a window I can work with.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of developers or publishers, whoever is responsible, have gotten better about that. It's not like it was 10 years or so ago when it was just like, oh, when is the next Assassin's Creed coming out? Where's it going to be? Who's going to be the protagonist? No, it's the hype cycle is condensed quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we've learned anything from the Hollow Knight developers, it's the internet will never be satisfied. So anytime there's a Nintendo Direct or otherwise, it's like, where's Hollow Knight? Where's the Hollow Knight sequel? Where's the DLC?
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't realize you have been following like the whole journey of the next Hollow Knight. But yeah.
No, well, I mean, I I enjoy a Nintendo Direct, and you can't have one of those without somebody in the comments section screaming about Silksong. So,
yeah.
I'm not invested in that I want to play it. I'm invested in that in that it's hard to ignore.
So I'm invested in that I want people to stop talking about it in the comments.
Correct. Yes, I would like it to come out so those people will have something new to complain about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's the next thing going to be? Who's going to be on the next Smash Brothers roster?
Oh, where's the Switch 2?
Yeah. Well, man, I haven't seen a lot of Switch 2 discussion in a while, but maybe I've just been like screening it out. I feel like you're just spinning your wheels talking about it at this point.
Yeah. I think we did like a "What do you want from a Switch 2" episode like 2.5 years ago or something like that.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah. I still want all of those things. Next topic.
Yeah. What do you want out of a Switch 2? I want people to stop talking about what they want out of the Switch 2.
Yeah. I'm fine with the Switch 1. They keep making good games for it, so
yeah.
You got me.
I would like it to be a little more powerful. But I think that's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
I think everybody wants, like, they want it to be more powerful and nothing else to change.
Right. Don't mess with it too much.
Don't, like, I guess there's already a touchscreen on it. I was going to say, don't put a touchscreen. Don't put a touchscreen on the back. How about that? That's a stupid idea.
Don't put 3D in it.
Keep it in 2D. Mm-hmm. Keep it to one screen.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of, like, man, a lot of rumors about the second screen. I'm just like, no.
Nah, not fine.
We tried that. It was fine. It was actually good, but let's, one screen is fine.
Yeah. Do you want to switch with a bigger screen? Would that be on your wish list?
I'm just going to put in the dock, so it doesn't really matter to me.
Oh, you don't play handheld ever. Okay.
I rarely do.
So would you want to switch with no screen?
I don't think I want no screen. I like the option.
Sure, not one that has to be played on a TV, but
yeah, I kind of want like the Switch Mini? What's the little one called?
The Lite.
Switch Lite, yeah. If I could like dock one of those, I think I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I loved my Lite. I had a Lite for when Animal Crossing came out, and I played most of that on my Switch Lite.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about how much time I spend playing stuff on my Odin, and I wish I could dock that, or at least, I've never really tried actually. I wish there was like a solution as convenient as the Switch dock for the Odin.
There's got to be a USB-C to HDMI.
There's got to be something. I just haven't. I mean, it requires significantly more legwork than just plugging into the thing that it came with. So
sure, right.
Clearly, I'm fine with actually playing stuff in handheld mode, but I do really like the option to put it on a big screen every once in a while.
Yeah.
So I don't want no screen, but if it's just a small handheld, I don't need it to be enormous. I don't know if I would want the screen to be much bigger than it is on the current Switch.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I've been playing a lot of the Steam Deck lately, and it is kind of big to the point of being cumbersome. It's just like I wish there was a Steam Deck Mini or something like that, just like a hair smaller, a touch lighter. It is a big piece of kit, and it doesn't travel nearly as well as my other handheld devices do. So, it's just it's too much of a big boy, I think, to be honestly sort of like referred to as a portable. It is.
Yeah.
A bit of a stretch. Whenever
I plug my Switch into that, whatever that shell that we got, which is just enormous, I like to pretend that I'm playing the Steam Deck. It's like, yeah,
there you go.
Playing all my favorite Steam games on this thing. It's just huge.
Yes. Yeah, that mine didn't work. I forget what brand that was, but you and I both got one of those little devices, and it's you slipped your Switch screen into it, and it had new controllers and stuff, but it was also a pretty hefty piece of plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And mine had issues. Mine like audio wouldn't work and all kinds of crazy stuff, and I had to send it back.
Yeah. I don't feel like giving them any more airtime because as soon as I bought that thing, they released a better version of it. So I was like, oh, great.
Right.
So whatever.
Yeah.
Make a smaller one and maybe we'll talk. Anyway, Marathon. Marathon's great.
Yeah, Marathon. Hey, there we go. Yeah, I knew nothing about this game before you played it, other than it was the Bungie game before Halo.
Yeah.
Yep. I had never seen it in action before, and I assumed based on the Halo pedigree that there would be aliens and spaceships in it, and I was not disappointed.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't know that it predated Doom. Is that accurate? So that was a surprising bit of history.
I think it came out right after Doom.
Oh, was it after? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, around the same time. Time moved much more slowly back then. So,
but Doom, I always sort of feel like is just the most bare bones gaming experience. And Marathon
just
actually felt
gaming in general, or as a first person shooter.
As a first person shooter, it is clearly the prototype for how a game like that should work. Because it is that, essentially. But anytime I see Doom played or referenced, I'm like, I just wish it did more. I wish there was more stuff.
It did more, yeah.
Yeah. And the modern Doom games are all of the things. So there's a space in between somewhere that I think maybe that needs to live. Or maybe that's some other game. But yeah, Marathon felt like you were doing a little bit more puzzle solving and trying to sort of knit some pieces together, and it felt surprisingly heavy on story because you were getting all of these
oh yeah,
well, they weren't audio blogs, but they were pages and pages of emails that you had to read with tons of lore and stuff, and I was like, wow, there's a lot to this, and there's very little to Doom. So somebody took the Doom thing and was like, let's put more stuff in it.
Yeah, I was very surprised by just how much material there was to read in the computer terminals, because you're right, the rest of the game is very similar to Doom in terms of what you're capable of doing. There's still there was no jump button.
No jumping.
Which is funny because it's just, you kind of take it for granted. And you couldn't jump in GoldenEye either, but you never really think about that.
Yeah. I mean, you go back to those old joysticks. You had one button. You could either jump or you could shoot. Your choice. You can't do both.
Yeah. You really gotta pick and choose what your character is able to do. But it was fine because they've designed the game so you don't really need to jump. In fact, a lot of the puzzles are designed around not being able to jump. So
right.
I feel like that would just trivialize a lot of the stuff you run into.
Instead of running around for 45 minutes trying to find a button to lower the platform, you could just jump up. Yeah.
God, there was this one area. I played it a little bit more. After you left, after we signed off the stream that evening, and I think I went back to it the next day. And there was this one big room that was sort of clover shaped, and you had to go around the perimeter of the room on this upper platform. And in the middle of the room, there's this recessed area, which is just filled with every enemy in the game, basically. And they're all trying to shoot at you as you make your way around this thing to the exit on the far end of the room, which you can see when you enter the room. It's right across the thing, but because of the way they designed it, you have to go all the way around the outside. So I was doing this and I was shooting all these aliens, and I was like, oh man, this would have been the room to put on the stream because this is very exciting. And I got almost all the way to the end, and an alien just popped me off the side or whatever, and I fell down to the middle of the room. I was just like, oh my god, now I have to go all the way back around because I can't just jump back up to where that I was 2 seconds ago. You just ruined my whole evening.
Yeah. That's it. That's a lot of old video games are just, nope, go back 3 hours and do it over again.
You just fell off the thing, so try again.
Yeah, your evening is ruined. You have to start over.
Although it didn't happen too often in Marathon. It was surprisingly player friendly. There was that one section. It didn't seem I just fell
too much.
I wound up in the trash compactor, and there was everybody's favorite, just the invisible door that you interact with on the wall to escape. But I was not in the right mindset, so I didn't find it and got crushed and had to do that again. But not a whole lot of other setbacks. I feel like as much as it is not aged especially well, it's aged fairly well for being a game from 1993 or whenever.
Yeah.
I thought it probably aged a lot better than Wolfenstein when I think I played that for the Backlog attack last year.
There was that segment where you and I were walking around trying to figure out what we had missed because we didn't know how to move forward, and it turned out there was an elevator lift to an upper floor that we had missed somehow, and
yeah,
I think if it was a modern game, there would have been 10 pop-ups and a NPC yes. advising you where you should go, and
Ed Harris
it was Nintendo
the comm and been like, check out the room in the west corridor or whatever, just every 5 seconds.
Yep. Or a little fairy would pop up and hold your hand, or
yes.
Yeah. Ask you if you wanted to skip this part.
I feel like, had we not been playing on the stream, it wouldn't have been that detrimental. I would have been fine with let's make another lap around this whole room to figure out what's going on. Sure. But there's because it was live, there's always that pressure to just always be making progress.
Yeah. And that's fine. Like I say that obviously sort of in a condescending way, but I also don't want to walk in circles for 20 minutes trying to find a switch I missed or a hidden door.
Right.
Just at some point I want a game to value my time and go, hey, maybe you should look a little closer at this thing.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. The second night I went back to play it, I wound up after doing that big clover loop around the whole room. I got to the next level, and it's this huge level because it's first person shooter levels were just much larger back then. I feel and they're much more maze and non-linear. And I get to the point where I was I don't know if I missed another switch, or one of the big tasks in this stage was you just had to clear the entire ship deck of the aliens. So I was maybe I just didn't kill an alien hiding in a corner somewhere, because sometimes they'll do that.
Sure.
And I had already been around the level a couple, 2 or 3 more times, and I just decided maybe that's enough. So I just saved my game at that point, and I haven't really gone back to it. But I felt I got most of what I wanted out of it. It was largely how I remembered it going. Because it's you're on the spaceship. It's somewhat spooky because the aliens are very unsettling looking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, beyond that, it's pretty much a very standard sort of Doom-like, where it's hey, you just shoot all the aliens until they're dead, and then you find the key cards and you go to the next level.
Yeah.
The story stuff was a big surprise, and that was you could very clearly see so this is the clear connection to Halo and eventually Destiny and all that stuff. So that was very cool, and I kind of wish that I think maybe I'll just go on the wiki and read the rest of the log entries, because it seemed like there was some interesting stuff happening there. It's much more interesting than sort of the Doom plot summaries at the end of each chapter.
Right.
But I wasn't especially compelled to go back and just complete all the rest of the levels in the game itself.
Yeah.
It was fun to play for a few hours, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun to see. I mean, it's clearly, kind of an important piece of gaming history. So.
Yeah. It really made me want to play System Shock 2 again, which is probably as much as I like Doom, it's probably my favorite sort of classic first-person shooter. It was the predecessor to BioShock.
Right.
But you're also on this big spooky spaceship. There's a lot more story going on. The gameplay is significantly more complex. It's basically an early immersive sim. But
cool.
Man, that game was so cool.
It's being remade, right? Is that the one getting a remake?
Are they doing a System Shock 2 remake? I know they did the first one, and I've sort of
okay.
Sort of had my eye on that because I never played System Shock 1. But the System Shock 2 remake would be amazing. I hope they're working on that.
It seems like it's just the first one.
Okay.
Came out in 2023. It's got a 9 out of 10 on Steam.
Yeah. Well, I should check it out.
93% of players like this remake.
That's good.
Yeah.
I played System Shock 2 a month before BioShock came out, just because I wanted to see what it was about. And it was it held up surprisingly well. There were some weird platforming sections, which is just they hadn't quite figured out just not to do that in a first-person shooter back then. So it was still happening, but aside from that, I had a really good time with it.
Cool. Good.
But yeah, Marathon. Pretty cool. Aliens are still very creepy.
Yeah. I love the old video gamey thing of having multiple different classes of enemy, but they're all just different colors. It's the same character model, but change the color from the first wave of them. The easy to kill ones are all red, and then you eventually get the blue guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anytime you and I saw a an enemy that was a different like character model. I was like, what is that guy?
Unironically, one of my absolute favorite things about video games, like when they do that in Dragon Quest, or the first Dragon Quest, because you run into the red slime, or no, you run into the blue slime. What am I saying? Who am I? And then the red slime is, right in the next area, and then you got the metal slime. But then like all the different enemies, like whenever you run into a new color, it's just like, oh my god, what's this guy's deal? What color is the next one going to be? It's really good.
And they really went to town with that slime thing.
Yeah, and then it just got out of control. They're just like, polka dots and cyborg implants and whatever.
Stacks of them.
Stacks, yeah. It's just like we've reached the limits on what we can do with a single slime, so multiple slimes.
Excellent. What do we have coming up next? Our next stream on Monday, August 19th, will be Pony Island. That is the next game on my summer backlog list here. What is Pony Island? This is probably not a well-known game, I would imagine. It's Daniel Mullins, the guy who made Inscription. What was that, 2 years ago? He makes these really kind of artsy, crazy, mind-bending, kind of creepy puzzle games. I think Pony Island was the first one he did. Basically you're trapped inside of a demonic video game cabinet trying to hack your way out. Yeah. I don't think it's like blood dripping down the wall, gory kind of horror game. I think it's just spooky with puzzles. Viewer beware, obviously. But if you're interested in checking that out, make sure you come back on Monday the 19th. Go to twitch.tv/VGHangover. We'll be streaming that at 10 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I am not really familiar with this guy's work, so should be cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love Inscription. I think I have said that quite a bit on the show, so I'm curious to see where the whole craziness started. And I think his next game is Pony Island 2, actually. So I feel like I have to play this before the next one.
Gotta play the first one. Yeah, is this the one that immediately preceded Inscription?
No, I think there's one other game in there called The Hex, which I've not played yet. So,
all right.
I think, yeah.
This looks very cool.
Yeah, I think his brand is very much, like I said, is like creepy puzzle games. Lots of breaking of the fourth wall. So yeah, I'm curious about kind of where all this started. So Pony Island, as it says on Steam, it is not a game about ponies. So
is there an island?
Well, to be determined. We'll find out.
Man.
So we hope to see some of you on Twitch next Monday night.
Yeah.
As always, you can go to our Discord. We always have an event created there to remind folks about our Monday night streams and what that game will be and how to connect and all that other fun stuff. So if you're not in the Discord yet, go to VGHangover.com for an invite.
Yeah. You can talk about Slay the Spire while you're there.
Yeah, it's just been some Slay the Spire lately. Yeah,
every week, and then you can't get rid of it.
Yeah. I was going to ask over the weekend if anybody had seen the Borderlands movie, but I
heard it's real bad.
Yep, I've heard the answer is no. No one has seen it. So, yeah. I read some analysis today that it made back 6% of its total budget in its opening weekend.
I had I don't consider myself a huge Borderlands fan these days, but I was sort of hoping that might be good.
Sure. This could work, right? it feels like the pieces are all there.
It felt like they were taking some real interesting risks or making some very interesting decisions. Was it Kate Blanchett is the Siren?
Yeah.
I was like, that's cool.
Academy Award winner, Kate Blanchett.
Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis, I'll watch her in anything.
Yeah.
I'm sure she had a great time.
From Eli Roth, the director of Cabin Fever and Hostel. And
did he direct it?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, and he was in Inglourious Bastards. He was an actor in that, but who is an artist I really like. He had a podcast about the A to Z of horror and basically went through the entire history of every essential horror movie and book and stuff you should ever read or watch. He's just a super interesting dude, and I don't know how he got tied in with Borderlands, but it does not seem to be his masterpiece by any means.
Oh, I kind of think he's full of shit. So now I'm just
do you really?
Oh, that's why.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh. I like him.
Well, maybe you should go see Borderlands.
No, I'm good. I feel like that's I'm in a Hampton Inn somewhere and it just started on Cinemax or whatever, and I'm like, sure.
Well, too bad. I don't know.
Yeah. On to the next video game movie.
What's the next one? What happened to the Metroid movie? Well, it wasn't John Woo attached to direct at some point. I would watch that movie.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I would watch John Woo direct anything.
Yeah.
What was your backlog attack game for the week, DJ?
Oh, I'm so excited about this one. I played Dragon Slayer 4.
Ooh.
Also known as Drasle family, which I have been, up until recently, probably mispronouncing as Drasle family, because that's how it looks like how you would say it, based on how it's spelled. But then I very recently learned, I felt like it was just in time, that somebody pointed out that, it's just an abbreviation of Dragon Slayer. So it's probably Drasle family, or Drasle. It's probably like 2 syllables. That makes sense?
Sure.
Because I know that Japan loves to do that with video game titles. They like to abbreviate them in ways that do not make sense to Western audiences. They're like I think in a lot of cases, instead of Dragon Quest, they'll say like Draqui. I'm like, that's not how I would do that, but sure, whatever, guys. So anyway, Dragon Slayer 4 Drasle family is an old action-adventure RPG. Or is it an RPG? It originally came out on the MSX computer / console thing. I have to admit, I'm not super familiar with the MSX catalog. But it is, as you might have guessed, it's the 4th entry in the Dragon Slayer series, which is considered to be some of the first sort of action RPGs ever, and went on to inspire a bunch of incredibly more famous works, among them being like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. So this is really the only one out of the series that I've played. I played it a lot as a kid on the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, where it was called Legacy of the Wizard. And I knew nothing about how this game worked. It just looked like this cool game where you went into like this huge dungeon and there were goofy monsters walking around and you would shoot at them and maybe bring back some treasure or something. And it was so mysterious because I don't know if I didn't have a manual or whatever. I played it a lot at like friends' houses and I probably rented it a few times. But I was always just in such a hurry to start it up, I guess I would not like read the manual if that was even an option. Because it just seems so cool. You could like select from a bunch of different characters. The aforementioned Drasle family are all playable characters in this. So you've got the dad and the mom and the 2 kids, and the family dog even gets in on the action a little bit. And they all have different abilities, which is very fun. And man, this dungeon that you go into just felt endless. And there was no map, so it was all up to you to just figure out what was going on or where to go. And there was, like you were saying, this was the era before you had a fairy holding your hand every inch of the way. So you just went into this dungeon, and that was it. Like, you figure it out. You figure out where you're supposed to go.
Right.
And it was just so compelling for some reason. And it was terrifying, because occasionally you get into these situations where you'd, like, walk off the side of the screen into the next room, or what you thought was the next room, or you would go down a ladder and it turned out like, there's no ladder on the next screen. So you just fall down 4 or 5 full screens and end up in this other section of the dungeon and just think like, can I even get back out? Am I just like stuck here forever? I don't know what's going on. So it was like, there was this constant sense of like, I could just make one wrong step and suddenly be in a very bad place where I don't have a lot of options for like escape or survival or whatever.
Does it give you like a game over in that situation, or do you have to exit out and go back to a previous save? Or what, is that an actual scenario?
I think it would. I'm not actually sure if you can actually get stuck, but I feel like it would be one of those situations where you would sort of have to figure out that you were stuck on your own.
Oh, gotcha.
So you kind of like soft lock yourself, I guess.
Unless you knew the secret to getting out, right?
Yeah, so it turns out there are like these teleport orbs you can use to get back to the surface level. But I didn't know that. I didn't even know. Like, I remember picking up those orbs all the time, and I didn't even know that's what they did. So, if only I had known. But anyway, it felt so just like mysterious and weird and exciting. It was like such a great sense of adventure and like dungeon crawling. Just playing this game, it was so fun. But needless to say, I never finished it. In fact, I never even got close. I didn't even realize what the objective was back then as a kid. So part of my goal with playing this for the Backlog Attack this year is to just figure out what is going on with this game. Because it's been a very long time since it came out. There's been a lot of documentation at this point. So I armed myself with a little bit of that. I spent a little bit of time, I think, like the strategy games wiki or something, as they sort of give you a general idea of how the game works. And I read a little bit of about what to do, and I was very surprised that it turns out it's actually a bit of a Metroidvania, where you basically. So I said you have all the different family members you can play as, and they all have different abilities and different sets of items that they can use. And the idea is you play as the different family members and basically go into different regions of this dungeon that only they can access, so like that only their special abilities are suited. And you grab the key treasures and bring them back to the family, and then like another family member can go in and use that item that you recovered to explore a different area, and it just sort of all chains together.
Oh, interesting.
So I was like, oh, that's cool. And like none of this is really explained to you through the game. You have to learn this either from just like reading it in the manual, maybe, or probably just figuring out after playing hundreds and hundreds of hours of this. So I took a little bit of a shortcut just because I was desperate to just get an idea of how everything worked. But knowing that, I went back in. I was like, okay, I'm going to make an effort to actually accomplish something in this game. So I did, and like the funniest thing to me is that as a kid, I would always play as the family dog, whose name is Pochi, because one of his special abilities is he's secretly a monster. Like from the dungeon, the family just like lets him hang out in the house. So because of that, he's immune to taking damage from all the monsters you run into. So it's just a very different experience playing as him, because you could essentially just wander around like unbothered by anything else roaming around down there.
Oh, interesting.
In fact, you can even use the other monsters as sort of like stepping stones to get to higher platforms, just because you don't take any damage from touching them.
Yeah.
So starting this up in 2024, I was like, okay, I'm going to start it up as I'm going to be Pochi again, because I like playing as him. Plus, he's just like a little pink sort of like lizard-looking guy, so that's also very fun. So I did that a little bit, and then I thought to myself, it feels like this character feels like a bit of a crutch, like sort of like an easy mode, just because he's essentially invincible. And I bet you're intended to play as one of the other characters. They probably have more useful abilities, or they probably have better attributes or whatever. So I played it a little bit as the dad, who's like very strong. But then going back to the walkthrough, what I realized is that it's actually recommended that you start as Pochi, because for some reason, like the item that he is able to recover quickly, it sort of sets off the whole chain of like bringing back treasures to the house. So I was like, oh man, I was like on the right track all along playing as Pochi. So I went back to it.
But the game will give you the option of playing one of the other characters first without sort of knowing that thread.
Yeah, it just like starts you off in the house, and all the family members are gathered around the table, and you just pick one of them, and then off you go. And you can, like, whenever you come back to the house, you can swap out with a different family member. And you have to do that in order to recover all the treasures. But as a kid, I would just select Pochi and just get lost in the dungeon forever and not really figure out what I was supposed to do. So it was nice to have more guidance this time around.
Oh, Pochi looks like one of the little puzzle bobble guys.
Yeah, he's like a little like dinosaur thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so back to playing as Pochi. The dungeon gameplay is pretty standard, sort of like, I guess, action platformer kind of stuff. It's like 2D side scrolling. You can jump and climb ladders, and you have a magic attack, which is kind of like a very short range, like ranged attack. So, like, Pochi will have a little, like a fireball or something that he throws, and the dad will throw hammers or pickaxes or something. And using that drains your magic meter, and you can restore that by going to an inn and picking up potions that the enemies drop. So it's like a lot of really classic sort of just RPG/adventure elements are in this game. But the rest of it is you're just in this huge maze the rest of the time, and it's up to you to just figure out where to go and where the key items are. And without a walkthrough or without a map, this could potentially take you like your entire life, I suppose, because it's a very large dungeon. So it's nice coming back to this with 20 or 30 years of maps and wikis and everything, just to give some indication of the best path through it. Because otherwise, I would, like, as fun as it is, just be completely lost in the dungeon. Like, it's very exciting. It's a great sort of like video game experience. I just wanted to like get something done in this game, so I went to Pochi's area. I didn't even realize previously that characters sort of had their own areas that were designed for them. I grabbed one of the key treasures, and I actually defeated the first boss in the game, which I had never even seen previously. So that was very amazing. So I felt like I had actually finally made like quantifiable progress. And I'll probably go back to it and try to defeat a couple more of the bosses, get a little bit closer to slaying the dragon at the end. But man, it's still pretty much just as fun as I remember it being. It's just so exciting to be in this mysterious dungeon and just kind of like left to your own resources to figure out where you're supposed to go. I was really trying to limit how much I was using the wiki because I didn't want to just completely be like glued to a map, like following the arrows around. But at the same time, I didn't want to just be stuck down there forever. So I think I managed to have a pretty balanced experience this time around.
Cool. Did you get further than you did as a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
I beat that boss. I'm on to the next character. I think I started playing as the daughter who... I forget what her special ability is. I think she's the only one who can like use the pickaxe to break blocks or something like that. But yeah, so just a lot of really interesting stuff happening in this, and I'm glad I have just that much more of an understanding of it.
It does sound sort of surprisingly complex for a thing that does not look super complex.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like you just make games back then that were very obtuse and did not guide you at all, because that was sort of the point. Like you're meant to just like bash your head against it until you figured all the secrets yourself, because we didn't have game facts and the strategy wiki back then.
And who knows, it might be 2 years before the next video game comes out, so you've got to enjoy this one for
I know,
as long as you can.
Yeah. That was probably the case for a lot of people. Like if you had a copy of Legacy of the Wizard or Dragon Slayer 4, depending on where you're playing it, you're set for life.
That was your thing forever.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I'm playing this on the Switch. It's not actually the NES version that I'm familiar with. It is a port of the MSX version, and it's part of this like initiative to bring a lot of these old like retro games to modern platforms. I think especially the Switch, called Project Egg, which I learned stands for Engrossing Game Gallery. But it's like this just one studio who is like just doing all these retro ports, and there's a ton of really interesting stuff on there. Like I think several of the other Dragon Slayer games are on there. I don't think Dragon Slayer 1 is, but then they've got stuff like a bunch of the Ys games. One of these days, I'm just like, I'm going to play all the Ys games. I don't know where to start, but I feel like, I think at least 1 through 3 are part of this collection. So maybe I'll do that. But if you're into like all these weird retro games, like I never had an MSX, so it's exciting just to see a lot of the stuff is playable just for like a few dollars on the Switch eShop. So it's very exciting.
That was my next question for you. What is the MSX? Because I don't think I know what that is.
It was like a PC sort of like, I don't know. I really don't know that much about it, but it was basically a PC. It was like a home computer that was popular or somewhat popular in Japan in the 80s. And I think it was like part of it was an attempt to have more standardized like PC architecture, like a more like unified platform, so it was easier to develop games for, maybe not even necessarily games, like I don't know, but it was basically like a PC platform that you could play video games on.
Right. Interesting. I'm looking at pictures now. It's it comes with a controller and it's got a cartridge slot, so it's sort of like a PC/console hybrid.
Yeah. But there are like a bunch of notable Japanese games came out for it. Like there was these Dragon Slayer games, there was Ys. The first couple of Metal Gear games were actually on MSX before they were ported over to or before the first one was ported to the NES anyway.
Oh.
Kind of a big blind spot in my gaming history, so I was thrilled to see this pop up on the eShop, not just because I recognized Legacy of the Wizard, but I was like, oh man, there's all these old like Japanese games on here that I never had access to, and a lot of them have they have like an English translation included at this point. So very cool. I feel like it doesn't get a lot of attention just because the games are quite obscure at this point, but there's a surprising number of them just on the eShop ready for you to play. So it's very cool.
Was this the end of the Dragon Slayer series, or did they continue to make them?
They made at least one more. You may have heard of Sorcerian, which is, I think, technically Dragon Slayer 5. Well, you never heard of Sorcerian?
Really? No.
I just realized I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that out loud either, so I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
The Drasle family?
The continuing adventure of the Drasle family.
Yeah.
Something I read about this while I was researching it is that one of the characteristics of the Dragon Slayer series is that each one was sort of its own separate thing. They weren't like a continuous storyline or anything. Mm-hmm. Sounds a little bit like another RPG series. People were saying it probably inspired that characteristic of Final Fantasy when they got into it. So I was just like, oh man, that is so cool.
Well, cool. That's fun. I don't realize you had played this as a kid, so cool to hear you sort of like revisit it after all of these years.
Yeah. I really wish they had the NES version on the Switch app or whatever, because the game, like, it's pretty similar to how I remember, like, playing the MSX version, how I remember from the NES. But there are definitely some differences. I would love to, like, sit down with the NES one again and just compare, see what's different. But more or less how I remember everything working, playing this version. So anyway, I will probably spend a little more time with it. Man, it doesn't seem like it's that long, especially if you just follow like the arrows on the wiki, just to point you to exactly what you need to do. So maybe I will even see the end of Legacy of the Wizard / Dragon Slayer 4 after all these years. But yeah, super happy with this. Just a super fun game to play if you're into retro sort of like action RPGs.
Yeah. Cool.
What did you play over the backlog this week?
I played Sable.
Yeah. Oh, how was this?
I like it a lot. It's really good. What is Sable? Sable came out in 2021. Developer is a company called Shedworks. This was their first game. It's still their only game at this point. It is a really cool concept for kind of an open world game. where you play a young girl who is leaving her kind of home village for the first time and going out to do something called the gliding, which is sort of a coming of age ritual for people in her little tribe. And it's you get a little land speeder motorbike thing and set out into the desert and visit other villages for the first time, encounter other cultures for the first time, solve some puzzles, run some errands for people. You do not encounter any monsters. You don't encounter a single thing that tries to kill you or eat you. So it is kind of an interesting, relaxed experience from that perspective. I tend to get a little overwhelmed by open world games as soon as you leave your first little village and encounter monsters for the first time or enemies for the first time. Or head into a dungeon and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And Sable does away with all of that. You're ready for everything.
What if that never happened?
Correct. Yeah. It answers that question. What if there was a Zelda game, but nothing was trying to eat you or kill you?
That's fine.
Yeah, it's cool. I appreciate it immensely. I think I've long felt and advocated for making combat and fighting and shooting and things like that less a part of video games and to just sort of trust your instincts and trust your ability to create an interesting world and interesting characters. And Sable got my advice apparently. So it's really cool. It's beautiful. It is a very gorgeous game.
It looks amazing.
There's a are you familiar? I mean, you're an RT kid, right? So you know Mobius? Mobius?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I had to sort of like reach way back into my art theory classes in college to remember the name, but apparently there was a French artist called Mobius who created this kind of type of artwork, which is sort of like kind of pen lines with a lot of primary colors. And it's hyper detailed, but it's not like photorealistic by any stretch. Hard to describe. It's sort of easier to kind of understand if you Google Sable video game and look at screenshots and watch the trailer and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have seen, either if it's not Mobius' work, but something very similar, but maybe they just don't have the connection. It's actually, as long as we're like pulling up references, it was it inspired sort of the look of the whole Panzer Dragoon series.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That sort of weird, like kind of post-apocalyptic, kind of like dilapidated desert landscapes kind of deal.
Right.
But I was very surprised to see this because it's like such a distinct look.
Yeah, it does not look like any other video game. I was really just like, have I done anything that ever looked like this before? And it's very it's super unique in that way. There's a sequence that I really like in the game, and this is not a spoiler. But you go through a lot of desert, so it's a lot of like browns and reds and stuff like that. But there's a sequence where you're exploring a cave where there is smoke coming out of these vents or steam coming out of these vents. And as you walk through the steam, rather than it just being kind of gray or black, it just turns everything in your field of view completely white. So like the steam is white, your character is white, the environment around you is white. So it's black, thin pen lines on a totally white field. And again, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I've never seen a video game like art designed to this level before. It's just really quite striking. And that's really totally cool. Works. Yeah, it's really, really neat. So yeah, the aesthetic of it, I really dig. It does kind of have kind of a cool, quiet, kind of meditative thing about it. The initial kind of training level when you're kind of in your home canyon, essentially, with your little post-apocalyptic tribe of masked characters. They're all kind of interesting and extended family. There's a little kid that kind of picks on you, and there's a sage older woman who gives you advice as you head out into the world for the first time. And so kind of a lot of like, hallmarks of RPGs.
Yeah, it's like it's the first town in every RPG or like Zelda game.
Right. And it's pretty, like, the canyon is smallish, but you get an initial objective to collect 3 parts for your motorbike. That is enough to sort of teach you how to like climb and how to you ride the bike and explore, and it gives you kind of a primer for the world and how you can interact with things and stuff like that. And then once you get outside of that, you go on the gliding. Like, it's huge. It's just like massive. So there's a lot of sequences where somebody will be like, oh, you need to make sure you collect this thing from this town. It's just a few clicks away on the map. And then you'll set out and you'll start driving. And you're like blazing across the desert sands, and the sun is setting outside, and birds are flying overhead, and there's a cactus, watch out, and things like that. And there's a cool monument, and you stop and take a look at the monument, and like, oh, there's a secret entrance to a cave and things like that. But then get back on the bike and you're riding. So I think it's meant to sort of evoke kind of tranquility and coolness and like a sense of wonder at sort of seeing the outside world for the first time, having grown up in a canyon essentially. And again, it's just it has a confidence to the way that it's kind of building its world and kind of crafting its characters and its objectives that don't feel like a lot of other video games. So, yeah, it's just every like sort of decision made in the game feels super deliberate and super thoughtful. And if you don't want to sort of drive across the desert for 100 hours, eventually you get to your destination, and every destination on the map, every place becomes a fast travel spot.
Oh, man.
So
okay.
Any monument, any little town. There's a broken down, weird like spaceship science lab thing out in the middle of the desert. And if you even just sort of look at it at the bottom, it'll say broken down lab. And that becomes a fast travel spot. So if you just want to hop through your fast travels and mop up objectives and collectibles and things like that, you don't have to do the cool like land speeder sunset drive anymore. But I did find myself almost always doing the drive.
Is there like stuff you're doing, or is it just, driving from point A to point B?
Yeah, part of it is Sable's sort of like finding her identity. So you will meet different characters at the in the villages that you go to that are like mechanics or cartographers, or they have different roles kind of within the micro society of that village. And as you do errands for them, they give you little badges of gratitude, and you can turn 3 badges into a mask, and the mask becomes part of your new kind of identity or your new profession. So you can choose, I think, as a gamer to like, oh, well, I'm just going to do all the cartographer challenges, or I'm just going to do all the mechanic challenges. But I kind of want to do all of them. Like, I want to see everything in the game. So I've just been collecting hundreds of badges and have not kind of declared a major yet. And the game doesn't really force you to do that, but that's what I think that's kind of the overarching objective is you're growing up, you kind of have to declare a major. So you're kind of exploring other jobs and other cultures and other things that you want to spend your time on to kind of decide what you want to do for the rest of your life.
Interesting.
Yeah. Again, kind of a fairly unique kind of coming of age story sort of set in this. It's not post-apocalyptic really, because it's not like a Mad Max vibe. But it definitely sort of feels like society has broken down in some mysterious way. Like there's definitely things in the desert that are like you and I would recognize as sort of like part of a modern age, that they just think are kind of weird artifacts and stuff like that. So it's interesting. You don't get a ton of like Explainy guy stuff on that thing, at least not yet anyways. So I kind of like the kind of the vague mystery of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I was describing it as post-apocalyptic just because, like, whenever there is some like remote civilization living out in the desert, it tends to be. But I was just like, oh, maybe they just live in the desert. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if Panzer Dragoon was post-apocalyptic either.
Yeah. Like they don't refer to that at all as sort of like, oh, back when society fell. Like you don't get any of that like Horizon Zero Dawn kind of storytelling to it. So this is where they live. This is how they live. And there's not a lot of sort of questioning of that and explaining of that, which, again, I'm cool with that. Like have confidence in the world you're trying to build. That should be sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dig it. It is really not much more than that, honestly. It is a lot of you like going to a village and somebody gives you an errand and you go do the errand. And the errand is usually tied to some sort of exploration or collecting a thing or, what was the one I just did the other day? Oh, there's an outpost that they use for like wind power, but one of the rotors has stopped spinning. So climb to the top of the tower and find out what happened. And it's a climbing objective and this exploration objective. You get to the top and it's just push X to fix it. And you push X and the wind turbine starts spinning and they give you a badge and say thank you. And they give you some money and send you on your way to your next one. So it's a little kind of lather, rinse, repeat. But it's cool. I like the world. I like the characters that I'm encountering. I want to talk to everybody I run into because they're kind of interesting and kind of enigmatic. It just feels very confident. It feels very realized. So I give the devs a lot of credit for kind of having a very kind of thorough understanding of the game they're trying to make and not really compromising on that.
Yeah. That does sound really cool.
Yeah.
It's been on my list for a while. I just haven't found the time to squeeze it in. But yeah, I know a lot of people really like this.
I really like this. I think I'm super enamored with it. SteamWorld Heist 2 came out last week, and I was like, I need to finish Sable before I play that. That has not happened yet, and I continue to sort of chip away at Sable, and I sit down with my Steam Deck at the end of the day, and I'm like, what game will I play tonight? And I just keep going back to Sable, because I want to search a little further, explore a little further out. Oh, I just got a new map. I got to find out what city is there, and what objectives I get from the people in that town and stuff like that. So it's just it has been a bit of a gift that has kept on giving for the last couple of weeks. I'm really into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think it's either the producer or the director of Dragon's Dogma talking about like one of the common complaints about those games that it just doesn't have fast travel in the same way that other games have fast travel. And I think his response to that was something like, well, sounds like why do people want to fast travel so much? Maybe just the regular travel should be more interesting. And that was kind of my experience in Dragon's Dogma 2. I was like, at first it's just like, oh man, do I really have to walk all the way to the next point? And I can't just teleport there. But it turned out that I actually had such a good time just being on the road for the majority of that game, because there was just stuff that happened when you're doing that, and it was just kind of interesting to be in the world. So, kind of fascinated that more games. I mean, this came out way before Dragon's Dogma 2 kind of revisited that, but it's cool that they can find ways to just make that whole process more interesting.
Yeah. And then this has fast travel if you don't find that interesting. So I think they have sort of met both types of gamers wherever they are. And I will admit sometimes, if there is a particularly kind of hard to achieve objective or a little bit of a collectathon I've gone on, and it's I could drive for 15 minutes back. It's not that long, 10 minutes back to the village to turn in my assignment, or I can fast travel there and just wrap it up real quickly. So I have sometimes gone let's just zip back there.
Yeah, let's just get it done.
Yeah, exactly. And then move on to the next thing. So yeah, I've used it as an efficiency, but not as a replacement for actual exploration. In fact, you have to earn all of those fast travel spots anyways. So
yeah.
So again, on you if you want to use them or not. But I do want to mention too, the soundtrack to this is gorgeous. It is Japanese Breakfast. I don't know if you know the band, but they're I think it's a one woman indie pop kind of thing. I've seen her at a music festival. She was great. Not generally the type of things that I listen to, but she crafted the entire soundtrack to Sable. So it's mostly wordless. There's not a lot of singing. There is one or two songs where you actually hear her voice, which is lovely. But the rest of it is this cool kind of ambient pop music. Kind of loopy, kind of spacey. It definitely has a few hooks that jump in every now and then, and some themes that reoccur, and I just super enamored with that too. So I have alternated between listening to the soundtrack and playing the game Sable quite a bit for the last 2 weeks. So would recommend both the game and the soundtrack by Japanese Breakfast.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't even mention Legacy of the Wizard soundtrack, one of the greatest of all times. By Yuzo Koshiro, who is Japanese, probably eats breakfast. But just another all-timer. Nice. Sorry, not to take away from Sable, but
no, that's fine. That's good. I think that's all I got. I don't know if I have anything else. Yeah. I really like it. Perhaps you could tell. it could just be sort of like visual quality over anything else, but I think it brings the chops when it comes to like a cool, compelling game that makes you want to play it more and more. It is out. I'm playing it on Steam Deck. It runs beautifully on the Steam Deck. It's on PS5. It's on Xbox as well. I've heard the PS5 version is not great.
I've heard the same thing, which is weird to me. I'm just like, how could something not run well on a console that is that large? But
and has not been addressed by the developers either. I think there's if you Google, and I don't recommend that you do, there's a lot of posts on Reddit of people very angry that Sable has still not been patched. So maybe don't play it on the PS5 if you can play it on PC, or check out that Xbox version. Maybe that's the way to go. But
yeah, how's the Xbox version?
That I don't know. They're all kind of PCs at this point, right? It's surprising that one works better than the other.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing to me. I was wondering, like, is it like a console thing? Like, is Steam the way to go just because everybody has a crazy gaming PC that they're playing it on? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to check it out, though. I'll maybe look into it.
Yeah. Man, I've been on a tear with the Steam Deck lately. So
that's another thing that was weird. Like, it doesn't work on the PS5, but it runs well on the Steam Deck?
Yeah.
Kind of strange.
I don't know. Don't know what to make of that, but buyer beware. Do your research, obviously. So I can advocate for the Steam version of it, at least the Steam Deck version of it. It is deck verified, so it doesn't have teeny tiny little text. You have to squint to read, which has been a problem on some previous games. Sable works beautifully on the deck.
Cool.
Yeah. But that's about it. Would recommend.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. I feel like maybe I should just take one for the team and play the PS5 version, see how that is.
Report back. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, maybe I'll just hate it. Just be like,
I've just heard it's glitchy. I've heard like people can't like flip switches to complete objectives or collect things that they're supposed to collect.
Oh, well, that's a whole other thing. I thought it was maybe just, it didn't run at 60 frames per second or whatever.
Oh, no. Just a touch janky. Just kind of broken.
Okay, well, in that case, maybe I will play it on something else.
Yeah. And that is it.
Cool. Well, I feel like these backlog games are always real hit or miss. So it's exciting when one get into it and it's like, oh yeah, it was actually really good.
Yeah. I love the ones where I'm sort of like, why didn't I play this 3 years ago?
Yeah.
What the hell was I thinking? I mean, I don't know what came out like adjacent to Sable back in 2021. But just did not have time or headspace for it at the time, and I'm excited to have had the opportunity to revisit it here, and I like it a lot.
Nice.
Pitchfork gave the soundtrack a 7.5.
Is that good?
That's pretty good for Pitchfork. They don't like anything.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know how that lands on the Pitchfork scale, but
they're super snobby. Anything sort of popular is horrible. So the fact that they like the soundtrack to a video game is noteworthy.
How do they feel about Japanese Breakfast, like her other works?
Let's see. She's a writer too, actually. She has a book called Crying at H Mart. That was a big bestseller, I think, last year.
All right.
She's Korean. She grew up Korean, so it's a lot about sort of being Korean American in the U.S. and stuff. I've like, again,
I was going to say, you can't get a Japanese breakfast at H Mart.
Let's see. Soft Sounds from Another Planet was her previous album. That got an 8.
Oh, wow. It must be unbelievably good.
Her other album, Jubilee, got a 7.8. So yeah, generally well regarded by Pitchfork. By the snobby hipsters over at Pitchfork.
Yeah, seriously. I'm surprised that they're still around, to be honest.
I don't know who pays their bills, but let's wrap this thing up. Anything else on your mind, DJ? Anything else you'd like to discuss?
I bet Pitchfork would give the Dragon Slayer 4 soundtrack a 10 out of 10. Just no notes.
No notes.
That's all I got.
All right, cool. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, definitely follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to join us on Discord. You can hang out with us and chat about video games. You can share your backlog attack if you're sort of trying to mop up some of your own backlog games from the summer, working your way through that Steam library, which continues to grow by the day, I'm sure. Definitely go to VG Hangover for an invite to our Discord. We have a Backlog Attack channel there that we've been updating.
Yep.
Yeah, and we would encourage you to subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcasting app of choice. Maybe hook us up with a referral to one of your friends as well.
Yeah, that's super helpful. It helps us get the word out of the show and bring in new listeners, so we really appreciate that. We also appreciate RJ Lake for our intro and outro music this week. If you'd like to hear more of his work, another just 10 out of 10 catalog as rated by Pitchfork. You can go to spellmynamewithabang.bandcamp.com and listen to more of that stuff there. Maybe buy an album or two.
Yeah. Friendly reminder that we will be streaming Pony Island Monday night, August 19th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Go to twitch.tv/VGHangover to join us.
Yeah. Should be fun. Looks very mysterious.
Yeah. I'm here for it. Let's do it. We'll be back then. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.